One of the most impressive feats in mixed martial arts is seeing a fighter put together a lengthy winning streak. Of course, perhaps the only thing more exciting than witnessing a prolonged string of victories in combat sports is observing the contest in which it ultimately ends. With that in mind, we are about to take a look at 10 MMA superstars who put together phenomenal win streaks and the opponents that would put an end to these impressive runs. As always, if you guys enjoy this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 massive winning streaks that got snapped in the UFC. Number 10. Jon Fitch, 16 wins. In July 2003, Jon Fitch defeated a little-known fighter by the name of Carl Jensen. The seemingly insignificant victory would mark the beginning of a 16-fight win streak that would lead to a showdown with UFC welterweight champ Georges St. Pierre. During that streak, he entered the UFC and proceeded to pick up wins over standouts like Thiago Alves and Diego Sanchez. After going undefeated for roughly 5 years and establishing himself as one of the division's best grapplers, Fitch was ready for a shot at UFC gold. In August of 2008, at UFC 87, the talented wrestler was given a shot at GSP and with it the welterweight title. However, the champ was able to control Fitch throughout the fight to earn a unanimous decision victory. Despite the setback, Jon Fitch would win his next 5 contests before fighting BJ Penn to a draw at UFC 127. These days, the former title challenger competes as a member of Bellator's welterweight division. Number 9. Anderson Silva, 16 wins. While he may have entered the UFC with 4 losses on his professional record, Anderson the Spider Silva would set the promotional standard for middleweight greatness. From 2006 to 2013, the Brazilian Muay Thai specialist would go undefeated inside the octagon. His 16 straight victories included knockout wins over stars like Forrest Griffin, Vitor Belfort and Chael Sonnen. Not to mention, his first round KO of Rich Franklin at UFC 64 marked the beginning of the longest title reign in UFC history. Following a dominant middleweight title run, Silva was finally stopped by Chris Weidman with a vicious KO in July of 2013. Despite the loss, the Spider would still remain a top attraction for several years, until finally being released by the promotion in November of 2013 following 3 consecutive losses. Despite a disappointing end to his UFC career, Anderson Silva is still widely considered as one of the greatest of all time. Number 8. Matt Hughes, 18 wins. Matt Hughes was a farm boy out of Illinois who would go on to become an MMA legend. The talented welterweight's elite wrestling helped make him one of the best fighters the division has ever seen. While Hughes is best known for being a UFC champ who has beaten greats like Georges St. Pierre and BJ Penn, he also enjoyed a lengthy win streak early in his career. Though the majority of his wins were earned outside of the UFC, Hughes won 18 fights in a row between 1998 and 2000. Interestingly enough, the man who ended Hughes' streak would also be the last man who defeated him before it started. That man, Dennis Hallman. While Hallman was a solid fighter in his own right, who also enjoyed a lengthy career, it's still fair to say that beating the future welterweight champion twice was by far his most significant accomplishment inside the cage. Despite the setback, the loss would ultimately have little impact on Hughes' career in the UFC. He would eventually go on to become a 2-time welterweight champion, as well as a UFC Hall of Famer. Number 7. Jose Aldo, 18 wins. Sadly, amongst a large portion of the MMA fanbase, Jose Aldo is best known for being on the receiving end of a 13-second Conor McGregor KO. Fortunately, plenty of pundits also recognise the former soccer player turned pro fighter as the most accomplished featherweight champion in MMA history. Prior to his infamous run-in with the Irishman, Aldo had won 18 fights in a row and defended the UFC featherweight championship 7 times. During that span, Jose Aldo's list of victims included fighters like Frankie Edgar, Chan Sung Jung and Chad Mendes. Unfortunately, all that momentum would come to an end once he faced McGregor at UFC 194. Even after McGregor halted his streak, Jose Aldo would recapture the featherweight title before ultimately losing it to Max Holloway. Number 6. Ben Askren, 19 wins. Like Jose Aldo, Ben "Funky" Askren was also the recipient of one of the UFC's most famous knockouts. However, prior to becoming the victim of the quickest KO in the promotion's history, Askren was an undefeated fighter with a world-class wrestling pedigree. As a former NCAA national champion, Ben Askren dominated both the Bellator and ONE FC welterweight divisions for years. After defeating Robbie Lawler, albeit in a controversial fashion, Askren was sporting a spectacular 19-0 professional record. Of course, all that would come to an end when Jorge Masvidal landed a star-making flying knee that knocked Askren out cold at UFC 239. From there, Ben Askren would be submitted by Damian Maia and subsequently retire in 2019. That said, the former Bellator champ is expected to make his pro boxing debut when he takes on YouTube sensation Jake Paul this coming April. Number 5. Glover Teixeira, 20 wins. Chuck Liddell's protege in Glover Teixeira put together a remarkable winning streak that would ultimately lead to a showdown with Jon Jones for the light heavyweight championship. From 2006 to 2014, the heavy-handed Brazilian managed to pick up 20 consecutive victories. Both Rampage Jackson and Ryan Bader were among the victims of Teixeira during that span. As it turned out, it would take one of the all-time greats to put an end to this impressive run. On April 26, 2014, at UFC 172, Jon Jones managed to earn a somewhat one-sided decision victory in his bout with Teixeira. While Teixeira failed to dethrone Jones that night, the 41-year-old is currently in the midst of a 5-fight winning streak and on the verge of earning a second shot at the light heavyweight belt. Number 4. Thomas Almeida, 20 wins. Prior to entering the UFC, Almeida was one of the sport's hottest prospects by finishing his first 14 opponents while competing for regional promotions in Brazil. Once he signed with the UFC, he picked up consecutive wins over Yves Jaboin, Brad Pickett and Anthony Burchak. Almeida's winning ways put him on a collision course with another surging prospect in Cody No Love Garbrandt. So, when the two met in May of 2016, it took No Love just 2 minutes and 53 seconds to end his opponent in remarkable fashion. Following the loss to Garbrandt, Almeida would struggle to get his career back on track, having gone 1-3 in the octagon since. Number 3. Israel Adesanya, 20 wins. Current middleweight champion Israel Adesanya is someone who has had plenty of fighting experience before making the transition to MMA. As a kickboxer, Adesanya amassed a record of 75-5 before making his mixed martial arts debut in 2009. While he technically lost his first amateur fight by decision, his pro career would see him remain undefeated for the next 8 years, and even become a UFC champion along the way. Between 2012 and 2020, Adesanya amassed 20 consecutive victories, defeating the likes of Yoel Romero, Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa. In an attempt to become a 2-division champion, Adesanya decided to move up a weight class and challenge Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight belt at UFC 259. However, in the end, the Polish superstar proved too much to handle, outscoring Adesanya for the better part of 5 rounds to earn a unanimous decision victory. The loss marked Adesanya's first professional loss in MMA. Number 2. Hector Lombard, 22 wins. Former Olympian Hector Lombard has enjoyed a great deal of success outside of the UFC. The muscle-bound middleweight annihilated his opponents inside Bellator and had won 20 straight fights leading up to his UFC debut. His first opponent inside the octagon would be MMA veteran Tim the Barbarian Boach. In July of 2012, Boach welcomed Lombard to the UFC. To the surprise of many, the Barbarian did enough to pick up a split decision victory, in turn upsetting the promotion's highly prized free agent pickup. Unfortunately, the loss would foreshadow his somewhat lackluster UFC run, as Hector Lombard would go 3-8-1 inside the octagon before being released by the promotion in 2018. Number 1. Renan Barão, 32 wins. On April 14, 2005, Renan Barão would lose his professional debut at Heat FC 3 in Brazil. Little did he know at the time, it would be nearly a decade before he would suffer his second setback. From 2005 to 2014, Barão would go 32-0-1 over a 33-fight span, with the bantamweight superstar defeating some of the division's best, including Eddie Wineland and the California kid Uriah Faber. In his prime, the Brazilian was considered to be one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and even held the UFC Bantamweight Championship. Unfortunately for Barão, he would be on the losing end of one of the biggest upsets in UFC history, with the man to pull off said upset being Team Alpha Male member TJ Dillashaw. Dillashaw and Barão headlined UFC 173 in May of 2014. The bout ended when Dillashaw landed a well-timed head kick that led to the end of Barão's undefeated streak. Following the loss to Dillashaw, Barão struggled to regain his footing in the UFC, with the former champ losing 7 of his next 9 fights before being released by the promotion. As always guys, if you enjoyed the video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.